Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast with your industry veteran hosts, Chris Detzel. This podcast starts now.
All right, welcome to another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Detzel and
I'm Nicole Saunders.
Nicole, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah. You must be
well-
good. You just got back from vacation.
Oh, I'm great. The vacation was great. Went to Paris, France for a few days, did all the touristy things, but then
Nice.
went to the grand finale and went to a place called Annecy, France, which is on the border of Geneva or Switzerland, so in the Swiss Alps. Did some mountain things, did some picnics. There's this huge, beautiful lake there that my wife and I went running around. Not all the way around. It's only 10K a day, but it's just with seeing the beautiful mountains. It's just, it was paradise. But
Sounds amazing. I'm glad you got that break. It's so important.
yeah, no, I think breaks are always important, Nicole. So anything new with you?
You know, we've had a busy summer. It feels like life is picking up. We've got a bunch of DIY home projects we've been doing. Although we had to take a break this week. It was so hot. We couldn't really be doing that stuff safely. So it was a good week to sit in the air conditioning. But yeah, things are good. Things are busy at work, really picking up there as well. So that's exciting.
Good. Yeah, it's hot here in Dallas as well. I think it's 105 or 108 or something.
I was going to say, I feel bad complaining about the heat to you of all people.
No, it's just been hot everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it took us a while to get to this morning as we were kind of contemplating on the topic, but I think we got to something really of interest to both of us. And that's more around how do we, and look, we're B2B communities. And so how do we kind of think about partner engagement and the way partners engage with our online community, and even doesn't have to be just online, but just overall community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a super important topic because partners can play a really critical role. But one of the things you and I were talking about is often the first thought when we get into partners is like, well, I don't want a bunch of people coming into my community to sell, right? I don't want them just promoting their apps or their services. And so a lot of thought has to go into how you engage your partners. But one of the things that you and I were just saying is that that's been much less of a problem than you might expect. Like I've definitely had like the occasional where I have to go in and be like, hey, maybe don't spam 30 threads with promoting your app.
Exactly.
But for the most part, when we tell partners like, hey, like users in the community really don't like it when you do that, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. What's the right way to do this? They want to be good citizens of the community. And two, it just hasn't been that much of a problem. Most people kind of get that like nobody likes just being sold or marketed to. They want to have a conversation. They want to have somebody that's going to help them.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I've never had a problem with a partner going online and saying something crazy, like trying to sell their stuff. A lot of our partners, we have both. We have partners that sell our product, but we also have partners that implement our product, right?
Same. Yeah. We've got resellers. We've got people that offer like services and implementation. And then we actually have a lot of apps that have been developed on Zendesk, and those are our partners as well. In fact, earlier this summer, we just acquired one of them. So there was one called TimeShift that did like workforce management, and they've been around for years. And then just this summer, we brought them into the official Zendesk fold. So it's a really interesting ecosystem with partners and the role that they play and how they are part of the broader concept of the community of a business.
So let's get a little bit tactical then. We said that partners are going to be crucial, and for us, they are crucial. How do you get them engaged and involved, and what are some things that they can do, to really engage into the community?
Well, first, I think you got to think about like the value proposition, right? And for partners, it's not necessarily just about getting out there and like promoting themselves. They want to build up brand trust.
Yeah.
They want to be seen as a great resource. Many of them, especially if they're offering services and things, they might want our customers to hire them over and over. It's maybe a repeat thing. So it's important for them to build those relationships. I had one partner that came to us last week, and I thought this was just the most wonderful conversation because they came in and said, our entire app is built on Zendesk. And they were like, the better that Zendesk does, the better that we do. But also, we don't just want to be like, eating off of Zendesk. We want to give back to the community, and we want to make sure that we're being a good partner and having a good relationship. So what can we do? And so we talked through the different things. So in our community, we've got a number of different ways we can engage folks. One, some of our partners have opted to be community moderators. So people that are really active in our discussion forums. Again, they're building up that brand trust, that sense of leadership. They actually share a lot of knowledge for free in the community, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking to learn about like a theme customization, it's impressive to me how much they will go in and write out code and help people solve problems. And I think their hope in the long run is that they're demonstrating their expertise and they're building that trust so that if you want somebody to come wholesale do this for you, that's the one that you're going to hire. But they're really generous with their time and with their knowledge in the community. So I think that's one key thing for us is doing that. And the agreement that we have with them is they can put their logo like in their signature on a post.
Absolutely.
Right? We ask them to not go out and just sort of promote, but they can put their logo on there and they can share an app or service where it is the actual solution to the question being asked. So we sort of have to draw a line at like, okay, don't go find every conversation that is loosely related to your app and promote a free trial. But if somebody's looking for something and you've got a solution, go post about it, go share it. So I think that's one way. We have a number of ways with our programs, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how you engage in partners in your online community, and then we can kind of talk about some of the other community programs that they can get into.
Yeah, no, it's good. And as I kind of think about why partners should engage, there's a lot of different reasons. One is I was at a meeting probably about a year ago with our customers, some partners, and a lot of employees. It's like I think we had 30 or so people there. It was kind of an employee meeting, but then we brought in some customers, but we also brought in a few partners. And one of the key things that our customers said was, because we have an enterprise software that we sell to our customers, and so the amount of money that they spend is a lot, right? So the thing is with our customers is they will go on whatever the partner says. So if a partner, from a competitor standpoint, if a partner says, "Hey, look, we have expertise in Reltio. We believe that Reltio is your MDM system that you should go with," or sometimes they might not even know who Reltio is. So how do you start build? So my thought was, and many customers said that. So I rely on my partner to help me make decisions like that, right? Because they are tied at the hip with the partner. Our customers are a lot of times. And so that got me thinking, is like, wow, how do I, as a community leader, kind of push more of our partners into helping with community, with that thinking? Because I want our partners to know who we are. I want our partners to think about us anytime they think of MDM or they're doing like this digital transformation project or whatever, because Reltio fits in almost every transformation project like that, right? So, but that was a big issue a couple of years ago, and more you're starting. I'm just saying community is one part of the many things that that we're doing to try to do it. I'm not saying it's all community, but so with that thinking, today we have some of our partners coming into the community, helping our customers to answer questions that they might have, because it's very technical, it's somewhat difficult. But also I've seen partners help other partners, which is pretty cool to see. Oh, wow, and so there's that Q&A aspect, kind of what you mentioned. You're right, and I've not ever had a problem with, hey, come and use us as your partner or whatever. I've had facilitated conversations with bringing, like a customer says, hey, Chris, we might want to use them to do this. Can they do this? Yeah, as a matter of fact, and then get them on the phone with that partner. So there's that. And then the other thing that I've been doing a lot lately, and I've talked about this in the past, I have what I call, it's community webinars, or I call them shows, just to be a little bit more outside of webinars, kind of boring. But we do webinars that are live, right? And they've been at times very technical about the product and things like that. But then I've also brought in thought leadership into that. So thinking about things like AI and ML, or just at a higher level from a data management standpoint, or data mesh, or whatever. And so what's funny is that partners have been reaching out lately to want to co-market these community shows with their customers. So them bringing in a speaker and talk about some thought leadership ship stuff within the space. So what that does is it brings more people from their end, so their customers and their prospects, our customers and our prospects, and other partners come to these, and coming to these shows, right? So I get all of that information and I push it to my Zoom, right? Which is emails and things like that I get all that stuff. So it's been a lot of fun to start those kinds of things, and I think for us it's been pretty successful, and I can't wait to see how that goes for the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we do community webinars as well. We call them events.
Yeah.
And they're oftentimes around various aspects of the product and how to make use of it and what the best practices are. And we've definitely found that partners have been some of our best speakers. Because think about it, they're out there presenting to customers on a regular basis too. And so a lot of them have a lot of those insights. The other thing we find is because they work with a lot of our customers, they have a lot of visibility into many different use cases, many of the pain points that customers have. And so they can speak to that. And it also means that they can provide us some great product feedback, because they're not just speaking for one customer, they're speaking for maybe a dozen that they're working with at any given point in time. We've talked a lot about how we launched our user groups last November, and that's been a program that's been growing over the course of this year, which has been really cool to see. Awesome. And at first, we didn't want to have partners lead our groups. We were like, nope, let's not do that, because I don't want this to become just the marketing channel for that one group. But what we have found is that our partners are the ones that have the most vested interest in making sure the groups take off and that they meet on a regular basis. And so we've really changed our tune on that. We really learned our lesson that partners can actually be really good group leaders. And like we said, really good members of the community. They understand that, they can't just use it to promote themselves all of the time, but it's still a way that they can get out there and be leaders and be affiliated with us and really help that conversation grow. And so we do have a couple of user groups now that are being run by some of our partners, and many that are just run by other end users. But those are the ones that seem to have the most consistent meetups and the most regular thing. And I also suspect part of it is because they can do that sort of as part of their job, right? It's part of their marketing and their brand awareness is to go be a part of all of these things in the community. So that's something that we found too. And I'm always willing to admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about not wanting to have those folks involved as leaders in the user groups. Now we still try to make sure that, there's heavy involvement from end users. And sometimes we've got a partner and then they co-lead it with someone who's not a partner, who's an end user, to keep that good balance. But I think it's just such an invaluable thing. We're also starting to have some of our partners show up in our brand advocacy program. So we just launched that in May. It's called the Zendesk Luminaries, and it's an opportunity for people to participate in all sorts of different activities at Zendesk, right? Whether it's volunteering to speak at an event or be on our podcast, all the way down to hey, I'll retweet everything Zendesk posts, or I'll just go answer good community conversations. There's this really wide gamut of things that we present to people to engage with us. And we're starting to have some partners show up there as well. And again, be really active and be really, really vocal supporters of the company. So I think it's an important part of the ecosystem to be thinking about and focusing on and empowering them to be able to engage, but also enabling them to understand, hey, what are the ways that you can engage that will build your brand trust and your awareness and your relationships? And what are the things that are going to make people just be like, oh, they're just marketing to me, I'm going to tune them out?
So let's get into the harder conversation around, okay, I agree. We should definitely allow partners to do all these things. And how do we track success? How do you think about success when looking at partner engagement? And do you work with because a lot of things go through my mind, right? I'm not saying I have all the answers, because I don't. But as I kind of think about all right, if we're doing a webinar, for example, so how many people from the partner do I track the amount of people that came from the partners? Do I start working with, and the answer is yes, but do I start working with the partner team to really start building to really help them build those relationships with the partners, but also help community to be a part of that, and what does success look like for them? So going to the alliance team or those kind of folks, PS team maybe, because they work a lot with the partners, how do they track success? How do they look at it? I think there's a lot that goes through my mind. Look, I'm a big fan of just trying to go do some stuff first, But then, to kind of keep it, why are you doing this? You have to kind of say, well, why are you doing this? And what's the success metrics? Not
Right.
just metrics, but maybe the outcomes of what you're trying to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean,
Like,
you've always got to know how you're going to measure and show success.
yeah,
Right. So, first, we definitely work heavily with our partner team. We actually
yeah,
created like a private partners discussion space in our community this year. So the partners themselves could talk to each other and learn what they're each doing. And it works especially well for like our reseller partners who are
yeah,
discussing
yeah.
like how they're
Well, that's
what their
interesting.
tactics are and things are like that. And so that was a big win for us, was getting them on board by giving that team something, right? Giving them a space where we could help them connect with the partners and help the partners connect with each other. So I know that they're measuring success there a lot in terms of they're actually kind of looking at ticket deflection, right? How are
Yeah,
these users helping each other instead of having to come to us? How are they helping create content and resources that now we don't have to create because they've done it? Um, so it's sort of funny. It's like a microcosm of a support forum for them there.
yeah,
So that's one piece. I think it is also looking at, like I said, we're seeing that the user groups that are run by partners are some of the biggest and most consistent ones. And so we're telling that story of, hey, these are the groups that are going over and beyond. These are the ones that are having regular meetups. These are the ones that are growing. But I think you also need to look at the impact for the partners, right? And how do you tell that story? And some of that's got to be self-reported, but it's building that sort of feedback loop with them of saying, hey, we want you to come join this and be part of this thing. And then over time, we're going to check in with you and want to understand, like, do you feel that this is having an impact? And what are you seeing as the impact for your business? So I've been thinking a lot about internal storytelling lately. And we could
yeah.
probably do a whole episode just on that. But I'm a
Should.
really big fan of when you don't have something you can measure quantitatively, and even when you do, you can still tell the story. You can still tell the anecdote. You can still help people understand what the value proposition is. And I love doing that, especially with the partners, because oftentimes, the really big wins are, yeah, I was leading this group and I built this relationship with this person and we ended up getting a contract and now they're our biggest customer. And, that kind of a thing that
That's
really
a good
clearly
story.
happened organically through the community and wouldn't have happened, or
Yeah.
maybe would have, but you can point to like the fact that they made that connection through your community, through your program, as a key part of their business.
And I think that, so let's back up a little bit, because I think that sometimes as community leaders, we think that community is just the thing that just made everything happen. You know what I mean? Like, I think that maybe that's true sometimes, but for the most part, I think we have to look at it as there's probably many things that happen
I was gonna say it's one of the
that,
touch points, right?
and you got to look at it as a touch point. Now I'm talking like a marketer, right? But it's true. Like, there's probably many things that happen. You probably had a partner success person or whatever you call them in your organization talk to
Mm-hmm.
this partner about something. They came to community, did some things. They saw some stuff on a website. You know what I mean? Like, there's just like many different touch points. And community can really, the beauty about community is that you can really kind of push that conversation. You can get them engaged and involved, right? There's always a way to do that. And so there's, I'm not like, community is a um, big way of getting them, engaged and involved and getting them excited. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have more weight sometimes than other things, because downloading a document probably is not the same as somebody posting on the community or speaking on the community or whatever. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, so you kind of got to look at that. And the other thing that I think about, and just to give one example, is I kind of look at let's just put the shows, because I always, it's a big thing that I do. So weekly, I have a community webinar that's live or whatever. And so when I'm starting to bring partners in, things I've been thinking about is, okay, when a partner does a show, what does that look like? Not just the numbers, because, registration's good, people that show up, okay, that's the sexy number, but it's not really telling the story. It's like, hey, people showed up, so they're interested. But what is kind of for us, we look at influenced pipeline, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how much do those shows influence the pipeline? So I can say individually each show, which shows and how much they've influenced, right? So I could say, well, this show over time really did $1 million, in influence pipeline. Well, this show did 3 million or whatever, and then I can start looking at and I'm not sure yet, but does one matter over the other, right? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But you can dissect that and say, well, okay, when partners do it, because it's thought leadership, it's about net new, not necessarily renewals or not necessarily expansion, or maybe it's expansion. And I could say in net new they helped with 500,000, and expansion they help with this or that. When you have partners do it, they really push that, so it kind of balances out these really technical webinars versus whatever. So all I'm saying is you can really dissect the data and show the true value of things that you're already doing, right?
Yeah.
You just integrate them into that process. Does that make sense? Or
Oh, it totally makes sense.
am I thinking of
And
that right? Like just kind of.
I think so. I mean, we talked about this a bit on one of our more recent episodes, how important it is to measure things the way other teams at your company measure things,
Exactly.
right? And get your metrics into that. And so looking at things like influenced pipeline from an event, you can be like, it's really interesting if you can start to see a pattern and be like, hey, when we bring in our partners as guest speakers, we see it influences a little bit more pipeline, those events, or we see that those are the ones that are most
to this. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not necessarily, it has to be more than the other. It could be like, hey, these technical webinars we do really pushes renewals and expansion, but these other ones do net new and expand, or you know what I mean? Like, I think it's the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one is better than the other per se. It's
For
just,
sure.
hey, it's additional influence revenue somewhere, someplace potentially. Or it's, hey, when they do this, they renew 2x more. I don't know, whatever it is, but you've got to find that data. I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to like, speaking of partnerships, you definitely have to partner with your data team to make sure you're getting all of that infrastructure set up and you're putting those things together. But yeah, no, like I said, I think you're thinking about that in the right way because that's how other teams report on things, right?
Yeah.
And, I think communities have matured a lot, but there are still other parts of the business that have been measuring a lot of these things a lot longer than we have.
Yeah.
And so it's important to learn from them and figure out like, where can you take something they're doing and copy it? Where can you take something they're doing and adapt it for your purposes? Because maybe you can't measure it exactly the same way, but you have to be able to show those things. The other key to that is always, of course, like getting your baselines, right? And knowing like, okay, what did this look like before we started engaging these folks? And what did it look like after?
0 to this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very good point because my boss asked me yesterday. So I was telling her all the cool things that, we're doing because she cares about influence pipeline and stuff. She goes, yeah, but what's your goal? I was like,
right.
I don't know. That's the first time we've done it. Like, I don't know. Like, can you guide me and help me to understand what I should put there? Because before, if you did nothing, that's good. And this year I can say, well, this year I did this, and so far I'm on this. My goal is X. But then I'd be making it up. But she said, Chris, not to get off completely, but all your goals are green right now. That's probably not. She goes, great that you hit them, but probably isn't. It sounds like you set your goals really small.
Yeah, you might need to set your goals a little higher.
It's like, well, I'm doing a lot of things, so I don't know. But the point well taken. So, yeah, I agree. You have to set that, and maybe it's then setting a partner goal to say,
yeah,
all right, I want partners to do X number of shows. I want them to do X number of posts and answers. And then the outcome is it could be, a revenue number or whatever, right? Maybe it's not, but because that's a little harder to get to. But maybe it is if you're already tracking it.
Well, I think this is a great place for surveys to come in, right? And this is something that I rely on a lot, like especially when I can't pull data on something or there's like not a good way to measure something. And so you could go out and you could survey, the partners you're planning to engage with and sort of say beforehand, like, hey, what percent of your business comes from X, Y, and Z? And then like, hey, can you just keep track of it as we're participating? And then we're going to ask you this again at the end of the year and see, and maybe 60% of your partners say that they got at least one customer from participating in your community activities. And that's huge, right? That's something that the partner team really wants to know. That's something the business really wants to know, how you're building out that ecosystem and those relationships and influencing their success.
Because how will you ever know if a customer even came to them and unless they told you, right?
Right.
Like, so
if you set it up as a survey, that you just do on a regular basis with those folks, then you can start to get your baseline and your benchmarks. And maybe even it's just like, asking the partner team, hey, could you add these 2 community related questions to a survey that you do once or twice a year and show me the results over time? And if you're asking the same questions every 6 months, you're going to start to see some trends, right? And maybe it's like, oh, we saw that partners were getting, 10 leads a month from interacting with us. And then we started inviting them to webinars, and the ones that participated in the webinars started getting 20 leads a month.
Yeah.
Because they were building that brand awareness and things like that. You could also ask, your community members if they have a favorable impression of these things, or even list some of the brands of your partners and say, hey, do you recognize any of these? And then once those folks start participating in the community, 6 months later, you can say, hey, we built up brand recognition for these folks. Yeah. These are all different ways that you can measure it, even if you don't have an attribution model or a CRM or a data team that can back you up. Surveys can really help you prove your point when you don't have those pieces.
That was good. I really like that advice.
Well, thank you.
No,
this is what I had to do in the early days when I was scrappy and I had no data to go on. I was like, all right, we're going to run an annual satisfaction survey. We're going to talk about the things we do every year and see if we can make our customers like our community. And if they're happier, we at least know we're doing things in the right direction,
Yeah. Well, Nicole, this is a really great conversation. It always is, and I'm always learning from you. So thank you for coming on to another Peers Over Beers.
Well, always. I love being here, and I always learn from you too, Chris. We this is the whole point. We exchange ideas.
Exactly. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another Peers Over Beers. I'm Chris Detzel, and
I'm Nicole Saunders.
Thanks, Nicole.